So, good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here in about a minute. Jason Lemke, who is heading up the building subcommittee for our campus transition group, is going to be leading us through a slide deck. So there's really a couple of parts to this. One is just to give you an update on kind of where things stand with the work of the building subcommittee. And then secondly, and probably most importantly, we want to get feedback from you, from congregation members, from people that are here that maybe have children in our school. This is an opportunity for you to provide feedback and ask questions. So, understand kind of what the plan is, and then provide feedback to us. It's really important as we go through this process of determining how to phase out the building project, that we get your input, right? Because this project really belongs to all of us. It's not just a building committee project, a campus transition project. It's a Bethlehem Lutheran Church project. So the more people that we can get to provide input into that process, the more successful we're going to be. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
All right, good morning. We're going to go through some slides. If people have questions as we're going through them, feel free to raise your hand. If you want to wait till the end, we'll have some time at the end as well. Like I said, we're going to go through. There's multiple sets of drawings you'll see on here, and some of it you may have seen on from the emails that came out or social media. We tried to blow up some of the stuff so we could get a little bit better look at it. So what we're going to cover here is overall site plan, which would include parking lots, future athletic fields, playgrounds, that type of thing. The overall floor plan of the ELC, the school, the gym, and any future stuff. So you'll see that the school, the Bethlehem Lutheran School, will cover, which is BLS. If you see anything labeled BLS, that's what that's referring to. The Early Learning Center, which would be the ELC, and then the gymnasium, the future edition, and then some phasing pros and cons just from our perspective, and then a little bit of additional information at the end. So overall site plan, you'll see here up on the screen, it shows the school and the gym with the church up there. And as you can see, part of that is the ELC wing, which is on the top side of the school portion of it, is offset from the church because there is, when they designed the church, there is plans for future addition for each wing here as well. So we had to set the school off to the west here to be able to do that. And then the gym, or the parking lot, I believe there's about 50 stalls in the new parking lot with room for future addition onto that. And then you can see the playground, and then future sports facilities is kind of in that far left bottom corner on that. So any questions as far as the site plan goes? Once we get to the gym, I'll explain a little bit why we located the gym where it is, but we'll. Overall floor plan. I think overall floor plan. So like I said, we'll break that down into the ELC, the school, the future edition, and the gym. But here's just an overall of what the floor plan of the building is going to look like, or close to it. Like I said, this is a conceptual design. Obviously, we don't have designed there's no engineering or nothing into it. This is just a conceptual version of it. But with the ELC, you'll see there's obviously infant 1, 2, 3 room. There'll be movement space, bathrooms, some meeting rooms, and then the school portion of it. Obviously, a secure entrance is a big thing. So you'll see that along with offices, the principal's office, reception area by the secure entrance, along with the health rooms, some IT rooms, and then the fours, the kindergarten, have their own room with bathrooms in them, and then you go into first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth. And then the future addition, which is the kind of the light colored on the far left side of the page, then will be 4 classrooms, which would give the ability for every grade to have its own classroom in the future. So that's what you see there. The kitchen, there'll be a kitchen, that'll be a full kitchen in the school portion of it, along with a commons/lobby area, which would be connected to the fellowship hall on the south side of that. And then obviously then your gym, where that's located on the far south side where the building is. Overall floor plan. So the overall floor plan of the school is about 43,430 square feet. Now I don't know if some of you remember way back when, probably a couple years ago already, when they were putting together rough estimates of square footage and what it would take. It was around that 40,000 square feet range. So we're real close to that. Total cost of the entire building, obviously this is based off a conceptual design and just square footage prices, is about $15.25 million. So that would be the whole thing. That would be the church, the school, the future addition, and the gym and the ELC. So all 4 of them, the BLS, ELC, the gym, and the future addition, that would be $15.25 million. And obviously, it's going to have to be, we have decided that basically already it's going to have to be a phased approach. So whether it's the school or the ELC, obviously them are really the 2, and that's what was part of the question this morning, just to get everybody's feedback on that. And then the gym would probably come at a 3rd phase, and the future addition then following that. So here's the total cost breakdown. So the school is about 45% of the total cost. That's at $7 million. The Early Learning Center is at $2.75 million. So that's about 18% of it. The gym is at $4.125 million. That's about 27% of the total cost. And then the future addition is at $1.375 million. And that's about 10% of the total cost. So the school, here's a little bit better blow up of the school. You can see it does connect into the church in 2 different locations. So the hallway here where the doors are going out to the west, there would be a connection there. And then basically it would connect almost all the way across the back of the fellowship hall where the lobby is. Like I said, there's a music room, flex classrooms here. There's some band lesson rooms figured in here. Obviously storage, girls and boys restroom. With the girls and boys restroom, you can see that it shows a secure door there. The reason being is if you're having events in the gym, or if you have an event in the lobby, you're able to lock that so you can separate the school kids from any other activities that are going on, but still have bathrooms available to use as well. Like I said, secure entrance. Obviously there'll be a canopy with the secure entrance. With the receptionist right there, so to be able to let people in, it'll be very visible. And then obviously the principal's office, the pastor's office is there. Some break rooms, some school storage rooms, obviously janitor's maintenance closet and storage. And then you got the full kitchen, like I said, with a pantry. That located where it is so that if you do have a food truck come, they'll be able to drive around the building and actually pull right up to that node to be able to get into the kitchen. The floors in the kindergarten room you can see there, they each have their own toilet shown in there. And then 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th would be a shared classroom. Each one of them classrooms square footage is designed for about 25 students. So like I said, conceptual, but there's a brief snapshot of roughly what the school would look like. Any questions up to this point? Keep going. So the BLS phase, just some information. That's about 24,740 square feet as what's shown up there. The lobby and the commons.
Hey Jason, on your site work, did you have any plans for sewer water, or how's that going to fit in here?
So we have been working with the village. We've had a few conversations about getting sewer and water. Obviously that's a a little bit of a hurdle. But yes, we've had some conversations with the village. Obviously, our sewer and water here now, because the church is currently on a holding tank and a well. And the sewer and water is, if you take Grandview down to where the corner bends, that's about where it ends. So we'd have to bring it quite a long ways, but we have had some conversation.
On that side of the bypass, this side?
It's on this side of the bypass, yes. Yep, it's on this side of the bypass. Basically, right in the corner, as you're going, making the corner going, just before you get to the bypass, is about where the water ends. And the sewer is the same way. So we have had some conversations. Obviously, that'll be a challenge going forward, but we have had a few conversations with the village already on that. I know there was some work done when they built the church as well. There was a lot of conversations had when that happened. So, lobbying commons areas is part of the school phase. Classrooms are sized for 25 students per room. Secure entrance, obviously room for the future additions. Total cost is about $7 million. Construction cost is around 5.6. Soft cost is about $840,000, and contingency is about $560,000. Soft costs, you're looking at engineering and some of them kind of fees is what is included in the soft cost. That's what that is, and that's based off a percentage of the total cost of the building. And then the contingency is anything that may change if you run into something unexpected. That's where the contingency costs would come in. Early Learning Center. As you see up here, this is what the Early Learning Center looks like, kind of blowing up. Now, how it's shown connected to the church could go either way. Basically, it's a hallway that would connect the church, whether it's the school first or the ELC first. It's just a matter of moving a wall a little bit one way or the other, depending on what we decide to do first. But like I said, the infants and the ones obviously have multiple things in there. We got a staff toilet, we got storage in the 1-year-old room. Don't need toilets in there, but the 2s have their own toilet, the 3s have their own toilet. There's movement space. There's a storage room, obviously a lot of stuff with them. And then the flat conference room for any type of meetings they may have, a meeting room, and then extra bathrooms there as well. One thing with these is you can see the fenced-in play area, so that would be part of this phase. It's just to the left in that green area. There would actually be doors so they could go right from the classroom out into that play area and then back into the classroom. They don't have to walk around that side, so they'd be able to access that directly from their rooms. Any questions on the ELC stuff? Yeah, yeah. So Dean's asking about storage. Obviously, storage is always, seems like it's always an issue, right, no matter where you go. So obviously, some of these storage areas could get made bigger. So the ELC, obviously, they would need to come up here, or the same thing with the school. That stuff would come up here with them. So, any other questions on the ELC stuff? Aaron. Are you talking like from where it shows where the men's restroom is, from there kind of over to that meeting room? I don't know the exact dimension. On here, it looks like it's probably about 30-ish feet, something like that. Obviously, correct.
Church addition is right off of this door.
What's that? Yes.
Church addition, and the plans for that still intact.
Correct.
So it's going to be off.
Yeah. So it'll be off, and part of that is to be able to get in as close as you can there. To be able to access anything in that area. Because there is some stuff that will be in what we're going to call the courtyard area. Basically, between the hallway that goes out and then we connect to the back, there's kind of a courtyard area in there. And there is some mechanicals and stuff in there, so we'll be able to access that. So you want to leave a little space there as well to be able to get in there. Any other questions? Fine.
As
Yes.
That'll be the same exact crowd as we have currently down at school in the winter time. It's up to the parking lot also is kind of as well. The other thing I see is, like you said, storage. I don't see any vector storage, and I don't see a single mechanical.
So in the school portion of it is.
Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, what he was asking was the, as far as storage and janitor's closets, and then north door going into the ELC there, along with the parking lot being more on the north side. So this area has some room for adjustment to be able to add a mechanical room if we have to put one in there for this phase to go first. And then the school, when we, on that side, there is showing a janitor / mechanical room kind of combination on there.
One thing that's amazing of any of those parts of the project, we have to have full mechanical setup for the fire department, all that's going to work. Also, utilities have to be all set up for the different parts of the trade. So there's going to be a large room for those that equipment as well as site work. That's what that's done.
Correct. Well, what Lonnie said is, no matter what phase goes first, you're going to have to basically design it as the whole thing is going to go, right? For the future additions. So whether it's we bring sewer and water in, you got to size that accordingly. Electrical, when that comes in, you're going to have to size that accordingly. Gas, obviously we have electrical and gas, natural gas here now, but more than likely it'll have to be upsized because of the square footage that you're adding onto it. So that'll all essentially have to go in whatever phase we decide to go first. Correct. Any other questions? All right, we'll keep on going here. So the ELC phase details is 6,650 square feet. Bathrooms in each classroom that they are needed in. Fenced-in playground with access to playground area from each classroom. And then keeping that ability to interact with all the BLS students as well. Total cost of the ELC phase is $2.75 million. Construction costs are $2.2, and then you have your soft costs at $330 and your contingency at $220,000. The gym. So here's a blow up of the gym. Obviously that has boys and girls locker room, gym storage, which can also be accessed from the drive that comes up there, which will basically be where they would go into the kitchen. So there would be an exterior door that you can bring if you have to bring anything from, say if it has to come from the current location up here at that point, you'll be able to get, in ease to be able to get into that gym storage room and then into the gym from there. There's showing mechanical room, and then there'll be a stairs there just with building that into the hill, how it's showing. The reason that we had put this where it is into that hill, so basically it would get, that's going to basically be a big concrete box, essentially, a gym with a bunch of free span bar joists. So the south wall and part of the east wall will be more of a retaining wall, but being able to utilize our current parking lot. Otherwise, we would have to put if we moved it where we couldn't use that parking lot, we would have to basically double, almost triple the size of the parking lot that the new one that we'd have to put in, because there's a code issue with however many people the gym seats, got to have X amount of parking stalls for that. So that's why we put the gym where it is, so we can utilize the current parking lot. That's the gym. Any questions on that? It does show a portable stage in here. If you can see on the bottom side of that, so for any musicals or anything that we need to do that needs a stage, it does show that in there. And the gym does also have, obviously the seats will be retracting so they can get folded up like our current ones are, but it does have 2 side courts, so you could potentially have 2 different practices going on at one time in there rather than, and they would have almost like a full court for that. So. The gym phase details, that's about 14,380 square feet. room to put up portable stage for events, 1 full court and 2 side courts for multiple practices, gym storage with exterior access for larger items that need to come in and out. Total cost here is about $4.125 million. Construction costs are at about 3.3, soft costs 495, and contingency at 330,000. And then the future addition. Like I said before, this would go off the west side of the school wing for future classrooms and showing 4 future classrooms, like I said, for that would give you the option of having each grade in their own classroom. Any questions on that?
Is it realistic to actually assume we don't need the addition right away because with the school expanding, we call another teacher, if the ELC moves up, we got extra space down there, but you know, what's the odds of us not needing 8 rooms right away?
So Steve's question was, what are the odds that we aren't going to need those 4 future classrooms right away? Well, if God blesses us, we may have to put those 4 classrooms on, right away when we do build this. So it may not be a future addition, or it may be that we need to just put the foundations in and shell it up and leave the rooms empty and then kind of finish them out. So there's some options there that we can potentially do, but there is a good chance, yes, we may need those rooms right away, whenever this does happen down the road.
So,
Any other questions?
So, Steve, I guess I'll give you my opinion on that question. I think it really depends maybe on the phasing of the project, right? And which phases go first, depending if we would build ELC first or the elementary school first. But I suspect there's a high likelihood we would need those classrooms at the time we build, just based on the growth we're seeing currently in enrollment at our school and what our other area elementary schools are experiencing for growth right now. And then also the Hortonville Area School District just updated their demographics study recently, and we got access to that report, and it shows even stronger growth than what they were projecting a couple of years ago for this area. So yeah, my opinion is, especially if the school becomes phase 2 of the project, those classrooms would get built along with the rest of the school.
Any other questions on the future addition? Dean.
Just a question. I know you've done a whole lot here already, but is there anything as far as what the value of another facility there that would, at some time would help us with the cost of the acquisition?
Yeah, so the finance committee will cover a little bit of that next month, but there has been some looking into that and what we could get for the old school. Obviously, with the phasing projects, you're going to have multiple locations for a while, obviously depending. But yes, there has been some look into that. It's hard to put into how much it would help us, just because we don't know how long down the road it's going to be. So try to get a cost now. It's not worth it until you actually get closer. Obviously, with the market, things go up and down and that type of thing. So, but yes, they have looked at what we could get for the current facility. Any other questions?
How's it work versus doing a second story versus expanding out?
So she asked, what about going to a second story rather than expanding out? With that, obviously you need elevators, and you add, which are not cheap, so you add that factor into things. You could build up. Obviously, we're fortunate up here to have a lot of land that you could keep everything on one level. So you do add, yeah, you could, but then you got stairs, you're going up and down, you got to add an elevator, which is obviously maintenance. You got to have it inspected every year and all that stuff. There's added cost to that. If we would be landlocked and have a small piece here, but since we do have a fairly large piece here, we're trying to keep everything on one level if we can. Question? Anybody else got any questions on this? Sure.
How much extra land would you have after the school is built?
So when we started designing this, I don't know if you see, there was a cutoff. Obviously, there's a. You're gonna flip back. So with what we currently have, and then the ability to, I guess, gain the land that's next door. When we started this project, all we were told is treat that like it's ours. So as far as land goes, I don't think there's really there'll be quite a bit of land left, even with. So if you look up there, the dark black line is what we currently have. And then everything to the west of that, there's 10 acres, or just a little over 10 acres, is Darwin Sully's property. So basically what we were told is, don't worry, treat that like it's our own when we started designing. So.
Currently, we have 26 acres here right now. We have future retirement center on top of the hill. But our current is 26 acres. Stipulation of the state, how many acres you can own with a tax exempt.
Yeah. So what Lonnie said is we have 26 acres here now, and there is a little bit of a deal with how many acres you can have without being tax exempt. I think our finance committee has looked into that a little bit, and they couldn't find anything actually that says what the total acreage was, because that would include our current parcel down at school too, and what they could find, right, John? There was no acreage limitation from what you could find, right, Matt?
I spoke to a couple of attorneys, and they're saying that there shouldn't be any acreage limitation.
Okay. So, but yes, that's something they looked that up, because we had heard that there might be some acreage limitations. So, any other questions on that? If not, we'll.
So, thank you, Jason, for running us through this. So, a couple of notes that I wrote down, related to the project. The question around sewer and water, right? The utilities. When we built the church up here, I know that Lon and a lot of the other people that were involved in that project spent a lot of time working with the village around whether or not we would get utilities run up here at that time when we did this project. For various reasons, we ended up where we are now, where we're on a well and a holding tank, and then we also have tanks for our fire protection system. That is, like Jason mentioned, that is one of the, I'm going to put it a positive way. It's an opportunity we have, right, to work with the village to figure out how we're going to do that. But I think what I want to emphasize around that is whether we do the project in an ELC phase first or a BLS phase first, we're going to have to get that sorted out, right? To Lon's point, whatever we plan to do as phase one of the project, we have to plan for our utilities and mechanical for kind of the full site and what we're going to end up with. So that's something that from a cost standpoint, we'll have to figure out what that portion is going to cost us to do the project. The other note that I captured was around, from a phasing perspective, if we would build, let's say, ELC first, a lot of the, I'm going to say, infrastructure stuff right now is planned into the BLS portion of the building project. So once again, we'd have to sort out from a cost standpoint and from a square footage standpoint how all that would work to get that equipment and that floor space defined in the project. And then going back to your question about second floor versus just building out. From the research that we've been doing on this project more for a couple of years, we consistently hear from the professionals in the industry, if you've got the space, it's more cost effective and also easier to adapt to changes if you can stick to one level as opposed to going up. When you start going up with a building structure, it gets really expensive really fast. we're fortunate that we have the space. You contrast that to, let's say, Emmanuel, New London, where they're out of space and they don't really have the land area to go out or up anymore. It becomes very challenging, right, what to do. But we're very fortunate here that we do have the space available that we can keep expanding out. Now, that being said, we have to be smart about how we do that and how we plan those expansions. But that is ultimately, from a cost perspective and a flexibility perspective, the better way to go from what the professionals are telling us. So, other questions, comments, feedback? I guess we're just looking for feedback from you on your thoughts on the project, right? And, you know, when you look at this site picture, I can throw that back up on the screen here again, but when we look at that site layout, I think it really kind of hits me to say, wow, you look at the amount of square footage that we're potentially talking about there relative to this building. I don't think of this building, I think it's fairly good size, but when you look at it in perspective to what we're proposing there for a gym and a school and an ELC, you know, we're talking a fairly large building project, building expansion here, right?
Question over here.
Yes.
When you're talking phases, how you have a time frame between phase 1 and phase 4?
Yeah, great question around phases and timing around those phases. So I guess let's back up a little bit and talk about where we're currently, and I don't want to preempt what our finance committee is going to be presenting next month too much, but needless to say, we currently have a loan on this building for this project. Realistically, we think we have to have that loan paid off or substantially paid off to be able to go forward with a school or ELC project. So there's that phase and what we're calling a capital campaign phase to raise the funds for a down payment and then also pay off this existing facility. And, you know, realistically, you're looking at, you know, probably 3 years or so if we're really aggressive in doing that before we get to the first phase of this project. And then depending on what phase we decide to do first, you're looking at probably another 3 years minimum before you move into another phase. So by the time you get to phase 1, it's maybe 3 years out from today. And then phase 2, best case I'm thinking, would be another 3 years out from phase 1. But those are just kind of high-level estimates. The other thing we have to look at, and the finance committee will get into this next month, is, you know, from a cash flow perspective, we have to be able to cover the financing costs, right? So there's not only the costs to get the project kicked off and moving, but then as we go along, we've got to pay off the financing. So you've got cash flow that you have to manage and project to say, what can we take on from a monthly cash flow perspective? Other questions or comments? I guess the other thing to keep in mind is, you know, what we've been showing you here today is just one potential possible solution for a floor plan, right? I think from a siting perspective, this floor plan right now seems to make the most sense, but that doesn't say that it's going to stay exactly like you see it today. But a lot of that, I think, will also depend on feedback that we're getting from our congregation. So, anything else? Any other questions or comments that anyone has? If you don't have anything today, but you're still thinking about this and maybe kind of, you know, rolling around in your mind what you think of the project, I'd encourage you to do a couple of things. One is to go to our website and look through the materials that are there that give you some more detail around this, and you can spend some more time perusing the floor plan and the details around all the classrooms and stuff layout if you're interested in that. And then the second thing I do, I encourage you to provide feedback, either, you know, give it to the office or send it to Jason or other building committee members, right? If you've got feedback, questions, comments about what the work we're doing here is. So we'd encourage you to do that. So if you don't have anything else that you want to talk about here today, I guess I'm going to formally dismiss the group. All right, we're going to say the presentation portion is over. Yeah, Steve.
So what's the current status of our existing building in terms of structure? Are we good for another 20 years in that site? No, the church was falling apart. We saved a lot of money by doubling that, trying to save it. Where are we at with that building structure?
Oh, the existing building where we're at. Great question. I'm going to say Lon can probably answer that better than I can, being chairman of our Property and Grounds Committee. But I think everyone is probably aware that that existing school, depending on which end of the building you're on, there's a 100-year plus differential in the age of the building from one end to the other. So if you're down there in the section where the offices and stuff like that, that portion of the building is really, really old, right? And then as you work your way to the east, out to the gymnasium, the building gets newer. But Lon, I don't know if you have any comments on the structure of the building and what we can expect for life out of it.
The only thing that's failing, not really failing, is the old part. We've had some water problems at times. Foundation is stone, so it would have been nice in the previous repairs that part would have been gone. But it is holding up well. The rest of the building is all fine. I mean, that'll last another 50 years. We need to continue maintenance on it though. So that is a big thing, and you know, that's probably problems we've been holding off on some areas. You know, because of the building project, you know, we look at not to spend any money foolishly on that building. So, but we need to maintain, you know, a level of consistency for not only our staff or students, you know, so we've been looking at that all the time. So we try to not spend foolishly for long term. So hopefully that answers the question.
To reiterate what Lon said there, I think over the years, our Property and Grounds organization and our leadership in general has done, a fairly good job from a building maintenance perspective. Like Lon said, it's this balancing act between making sure that the building is structurally sound and it's not leaking, and we're able to do upgrades where we can, versus making significant investment in building that we would plan to eventually move out of, right? So you got to kind of weigh those two things against each other. Anything else? Any other questions, comments that anyone has? So, yes.
What if you said the growth of the students and stuff is higher than what is our capacity in the building for
So as far as, good question about capacity at the existing building. So a couple of things related to that. One is we've got our elementary school and our ELC into one building, right? When enrollment at our existing school started trending down 15, 18 years ago, that started to open up some classroom space. We made the decision that, hey, we've got the available space, we'll put the ELC into the building, right? And now we've got the shared facility. We're now seeing that enrollment trend going quickly in the other direction, right? Where our elementary school enrollment is growing, our classroom sizes are getting bigger. You heard earlier this morning that we now have an accepted call for a 7th and 8th grade teacher, right? So that puts an additional load on that building. We're projecting that in 3 to 4 years, probably, based on enrollment trends, we're going to be out of space in that building for ELC and elementary school combined as it's laid out right now. All right, so that's kind of where we're at. We're thinking in that 3 to 4 year school year time frame, we're going to be out of space in in that facility. If we keep doing what we're doing today, where we have an ELC and an elementary school sharing that same facility.
So what happens if it's sooner?
Excuse me?
What happens if it's sooner? What happens, let's say it happens in 2 years?
If it happens in 2 years, we're going to have to adjust, right? We're going to have to figure out probably be creative, let's say, in maybe some temporary arrangements for how we manage classroom space there. One thing we do have going for us now is that because the old church building itself was demoed this last year, we've got a little more space down there. But realistically, if let's say in 2 years from now we said, hey, we are completely out of space and we don't want to make any significant adjustments to the way our programs are set up and run, we're going to figure out how to get more classroom space onto that site. Great question. John, what are we sitting at now for enrollment projection for next year for our elementary school?
So 80 to 90 for next year. Capacity, if every room is packed, is about 130. That's 4K to 8.
So I don't know if everyone heard that. We're looking at potentially 90 students in the elementary school for this next school year, and maximum capacity right now for us will be about 130. So we're at 90 this year. You know, that's a 40 student differential, and that's if you get the distribution in the classrooms that you needed to make it work. So yeah, it's coming up quickly based on our current enrollment trends.
Yeah, this is a question that I was just asking John. I was wondering if the capacity of the existing school will go up if the ELC phase moves first. I think yes, but maybe more specifics around that would be good.
Yeah, so question Aaron just asked is if the ELC phase would go first, would that help with the capacity for the elementary school if that stayed at that site? The answer to that is definitely yes, right? When we did not have an ELC in that building, now this goes back almost probably about 25 years, we were over 200 elementary school students in that building. There is enough classroom space in that building that we could have individual classrooms for each of the K through 8 grades, but the ELC would have to be out of the building to make that happen. But yes, you know, 25 years ago, we were at over 200 elementary school students in that building. So there is capacity to make it work if the ELC was not in that facility.
Just another question. If the ELC would move here first, could the time frame be moved up because it's only 1/3 of the cost of the other? So instead of planning on 3 years, possibly 2 years.
So question was asked around phasing timing for the projects, and if we would build the ELC first because it would be a lower cost option, could we do it first? I'm going to say probably, but that would depend upon, you know, the support of our congregation to take on a project like that, right? So yeah, the ELC, the way it's laid out right now is a lower capital cost investment. Now granted, we did talk earlier, there's infrastructure stuff that we have to figure out around that. That's going to bump that number up. But yeah, that, you know, I mean, just common sense, right, would dictate that if it's a lower capital investment, there's more opportunity potentially for us to take on that phase of the project first if the congregation supported that. Right? That's all I'm going to say about that. You know, it might be that this congregation says, no, we want to get the elementary school up here first, and that's what they're going to support financially. But, you know, just from a common sense standpoint, yeah, the ELC is less cost. Excuse me, it would be less of a burden from us from a cash flow perspective and initial financing perspective for a lower cost phase one.
Dave, I want to add one comment there. So when we had the concept or the conceptual design done that what you see today, I had asked Excel who did that. I said, how far out are you for design? So when we give them the go ahead and say, yes, start designing us a building, it's 8, 9, 10 months for them to get the design done. So when you take that into consideration, timing-wise, you got to add that into the time too to be able to get the design, engineering, all that stuff done, complete with it.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is encourage all of you to attend the session that we're going to do like this next month, February 25th, I believe is the date, where our finance committee leads are going to do a similar presentation focusing more on the financing part of the project and, you know, talk in detail. I'm sure all of you are going to love this about cash flow projections and things like that, but that'll give you a better perspective, you know, especially if you start looking at different ways of doing this project, ELC first versus elementary school first, what our capital costs would be, and what our cash flow needs would be to support phasing of those projects. Yes, Steve?
Can you just comment on the ELC? The existing structure that we have for the ELC was never designed for an ELC, so like bathroom space and things like that in the new system, that's all designed in. So again, moving an ELC up first is actually advantageous from a program perspective as well, because we have a lot of problems and issues and opportunities with the existing building because it was never designed for ELC, it was always designed for classroom space, so that's also something to think about.
Yeah, good point. Like Steve said, when the ELC moved into the existing site, we basically took existing elementary school classrooms and said, it's now an ELC classroom, right? So it was those facilities down there from a classroom design standpoint, from a restroom design standpoint, from a playground design standpoint, it was never designed around an ELC. Can you click back to the ELC slide? The one that shows the classrooms. So if I do a little comparison between what you see here versus what we have today, all of these ELC classrooms have restroom facilities designed into the classroom. What we have right now with our existing ELC is a situation where we don't have those restrooms in the classrooms. They're down the hall, down by the gymnasium. Just from a staffing standpoint, that causes some issues for us because you have to have those children supervised all the time. So that's one big advantage of going to a new facility where you get the restrooms actually into the classrooms. The other thing is you can now take the time to lay out the classrooms and design the classrooms for the space needs and utilization for an ELC, right? You don't have students lined up in desks, you have little kids running around. You have little kids that are, especially when you get into the infant room and the 1-year-old room where they need space for cribs and stuff like that, that we never really had that designed into our existing ELC facility. The other big advantage, like Jason mentioned, is if we could put a playground space attached directly to the side of the building like this, with doors going out from the classrooms into those outdoor activity areas. Once again, it just makes it a lot easier for the ELC staff to manage the flow of those children in and out of those rooms, right? I don't know how many of you have ever been to the Early Learning Center at the Greenville YMCA. It's been, oh my goodness, probably almost 2 years ago now that our initial building planning committee took a visit over there to see that facility. I encourage you, if you're curious to know what a modern ELC looks like, and some good layout design concepts for how to do it that have been kind of incorporated into this design, take a look at that facility at the Greenville YMCA. Yes?
Since the infrastructure will be affected for the school if we go with ELC first, can we have, or vice versa, can we have that brought
Yeah, we can have our building committee look at that and get a high-level estimate for what those costs would be, like what we have with this existing high-level estimate.
We just put a budget number together based on lineal footage on what we think it would take to get from there over to here. That didn't include like a lift station or anything like that. That need potential because of our height difference on how high we sit here compared to water towers and that type of thing. But for sewer and water, you're looking at in that $600,000 range-ish to get it from where it's currently located up to the church. So, and that's probably on the lower end of what it would cost, but obviously you'd have, with the design and stuff, you'd have to look at all that. In our budget number for $600,000.
Yeah, we can have that put together on that one estimate. Yes?
What's the capacity for ELC?
ELC capacity question. So it changes for each classroom, right? So elementary school, we can kind of say it's 25 children per grade level. When we look at the ELC, you've got an infant room. Jason, do you have knowledge or exact numbers on what the capacities would be for each of those?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I know once you get up into the 3Ks, you can have more kids, right, Nikki, per class than you can in the infant room. I want to say like infants were 8 to 10.
So what we originally talked about a long time ago was if we talked about getting licensing done, that the classrooms would have enough space for a double ratio for infants, which would be 8 infants, 8 ones, 12 2-year-olds, and then the 3-year-old room that would head, because if I have a separate space for preschool, then I could have 23-year-olds plus preschool. But ultimately, it's just looking at a double ratio for each classroom for licensing standards.
Okay, so Nikki, that was 8 for infants, 8 for 1.
12, 20.
Okay, so 8 for infants, 8 for 1s, 12 for 2s, and 20 for 3s.
That would be with the additional 4K classroom, right? Nikki, you said?
Well, that wouldn't be 4K. If I had, like, so we talked about the layout of that.
Yep.
If there was still like another space where we were simulating for preschool, that would leave the 23-year-olds and still leave room for extra preschool space.
Got it.
Right now, we just have the two combined, and that's where our money comes from. But if we had the space and the staff, we could have up to 43-year-olds.
Okay. Other questions or comments? If not, thank you for staying today. Appreciate your time. We are going to do another one of these sessions after second service today. If you're interested in coming back for that. But like I said, what I really encourage you to do is plan to attend the February 25th session that we're going to do with our finance committee. So thank you for coming today.